fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren.
Heard on KCAA 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
We are at the interview part of the show. Today we are talking special crimes, memoirs of a DA investigator. And that's a new book that's just come out, and it's by the author Kenny Rodgers, not the singer. He's not that. He's an actual real life detective here. So thank you for being on the show, Kenny.
Sure.
Hey, now Kenny, maybe give your history before we get into the book. So explain what your career was and kind of what you did.
Well, I was once I graduated from Sam Houston State University, I was working at the time for the Harris County Juvenile Probation Department, and I was hired right after I got my degree by the Harris County District Attorney's Office as an investigator in the Welfare Fraud Division, which was a brand new division, and that was in September of 1972. And then in May, I think it was March of 1976, I transferred to the Special Crimes Bureau, which was a newly created division that was opened by a grant from the federal government to investigate organized crime and serious major crimes. And I transferred there and spent most of my career there. And I worked my way all the way up to the chief investigator in 1995, and I retired in 2001, and then went back to the DA's office in 2009 and stayed for 3 more years. And now I currently have a private investigator's license, and I still do investigations sometimes.
How does something like that affect someone like you? In the fact that you started out, I guess I should ask that first. What drew you into being into law enforcement from the beginning? Like, why did you want to have that type of a life?
When I was 10 years old, my parents took me to Washington, D.C., and we toured the FBI building, and I told my parents, I said, I want to be an FBI agent. And I bought the book, the FBI story, and then I watched the movie with James Stewart, story of the FBI, and I'm like, man, that's what I'm going to do. And I said that from the time I was 10 years old and all the way through school. So I knew that I was going to be in law enforcement one way or another. I was lucky to get on with the district attorney's office. And then number 2, I was real lucky to be assigned to special crimes, because at that particular time, it was kind of an honor. And as young as I was only 25 at the time. And they called me the kid. And the investigator that was supervising me called me the kid. He said, well, let's send the kid out there. And so it was a great job. I miss it terribly. I miss it terribly. I had some really, really good times and some good friends.
Yeah. Well, but so when you were young and you saw, the FBI and all this, and you wanted to be it, you obviously had a very high image of policing and law enforcement and almost glorified and stuff. So when you got into the policing and law enforcement, was it as you thought it was going to be?
Oh, actually, I thought it was better than I thought it would be. As a matter of fact, I went to school with several friends. I went to high school with several friends whose dad was an FBI agent, and in fact, a couple of the sons became FBI agents. And when I was in school, I went and talked to their dad about going to school at University of Houston and working as a clerk. And he said, "No, man, go to school, get your degree." And actually, and when I was in special crimes, I went over and applied for the FBI, and I was filling out the application, and I said, wait a second, if I get hired, and then I'll go to the police FBI academy, and then when I get finished the training, they're going to send me to Detroit or Cleveland. I said, man, I love special crimes, so I just left the application and went back to my office, and this friend of mine's dad called me, and he said, "Hey, what happened to you?" And I said, "Man, I'm not going to Detroit. I'm staying here." I said, "Thanks, but no thanks." So yeah, I loved it in special crimes.
Yeah. Now, okay. So now we get to the book. So this is your first book, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what was it that initiated this book? How did you get into doing this book, and what is it? What's it for? Like, why did you write this book?
Oh, I would be sitting around either a restaurant or a bar, and I'd be telling stories, and people would say, "Hey, you need to write a book." So actually, in January of 2012, I started writing this book, and I wrote about 6 chapters, and then I got to a chapter about a Texas Supreme Court judge that I investigated for almost a year, and it was so difficult for me to do. I took a break from it. I took a 5-year break, and so March of last year, I contacted Tom Kennedy, who's my editor, and I asked him to meet me for lunch, and I talked to him about helping me with the book, and he agreed. So, it took me 4 or 5 months, and I finished the book. And the worst and the hardest part was the editing. Oh my God, the editing was it was so hard to edit that even with 2 of us reading it, it was very difficult. And then I came across an individual by the name of George Weir, W-I-E-R. He has written about 36 books, fiction crime books of one character, a retired Texas Ranger, and I think his name is Bill Travis. But anyway, he was a friend of a lady that I helped. She called me in 2000 and heard that I was an expert on the process of criminal justice from time of arrest to adjudication. So I met with her and explained how it worked, and I contacted her, and she gave me George Weir's phone number, and he and I have become great friends, and our wives are good friends, and I've been to his house 3 times now, and if it wasn't for him, Kennedy and I would still be twiddling our thumbs trying to figure out how to edit this book. But he's an angel, man. Angel. I can't say, great guy.
Oh yeah,
couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah, I tell you, I say that to people all the time. You need a good editor, That's how you get your book finished, I'll tell you.
Okay. I have to say that's true.
Totally. So some of the stories that you put in here, what stories did you put in? Like, how would you draw from all the years of work and service you've put into the law enforcement? How did you decide which ones you would include?
Because they were the most interesting stories, and I mean, I got more. I didn't want to make this thing, too thick, too many pages. I probably have enough stories for another book, but I think these were the most interesting stories, and some of these are known nationwide that I worked on, like Karla Faye Tucker, and there's a couple of stories that nobody's ever heard about because the journey to death was a very interesting story, because I'm not so sure that I had the guy's real name, because he never killed anybody in our jurisdiction, but he was living in our jurisdiction, and one of the kids that we suspected he killed in Peru, who was from Missouri, I was contacted by the dead boy's mother back in whatever, I'm trying to think of what year that was, it was 78, 79. And he ended up killing a gentleman from Washington State up in Alaska, and then he died in he got charged in that murder, and he went overseas and told them that he lost his traveler's checks, and he got some new checks issued, and when he came back, he put the stolen checks in the bank, so he got charged with bank fraud, and he got arrested in Webb County Jail in Laredo, Texas, and died there, and died in jail. And it's a very interesting story, and we really don't know how many people he possibly killed, and we're not even sure if he was using his real name when he was in the Houston area. And because he wasn't indicted in Houston, I kept most of the files that on these in these chapters. But since this guy had not been indicted, I didn't have his file. These other cases, most of these people were charged and convicted, but this guy, I'm not so sure. It's a good story, but I'm just not so sure that's what his real name was.
Right. And so, what was that one we're talking about here? Was that Karla Faye Tucker? What was the whole?
Karla Faye Tucker.
Yeah, what was the whole story behind her?
Oh, she'd been a prostitute since she was about 10 years old, and she was on drugs. I mean, you name the drug, she was on it, and she was angry with her ex-boyfriend, and her ex-boyfriend had picked up a woman who had a fight with her husband. She was married, and she went home with this guy. Never cheated on her husband before, so Karla Faye and one of her friends went over, and there was a pickaxe by the front door because the guy that she was dating was a construction worker, and he parked his motorcycle and his tools in his house, in his apartment. So they went in, and I think it was like 30-something strokes to both of them, both people. And then so we wired one of the her friends was a guy by the name of Danny Garrett, and who was a co-defendant and was with her. And he had a brother, and I wired up his brother with a transmitter and a Niagara recorder, and we were stationed outside the house. And when she said that she came with every stroke. The prosecutor who was listening said, "Okay, that's it. We got enough." And so we kicked in the doors and went in. There must have been 10 people or more in her house. I can't even remember how many people, but they were jumping out of the windows, but we caught all of them. But yeah, and then Danny Garrett died in the prison before he could be executed, and then she was executed. I can't remember what year it was, but she apparently found Jesus, and actually she was defended by one of our former prosecutors and a former district judge and a former U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Texas, and he became a big defender of hers because she had found God in a Governor Bush, George W. signed the order to go ahead with the execution, and she was executed.
Wow. And what about the Black Widow? It says you did that case.
Yeah, I did that case, and that's our first chapter. As a matter of fact, me and Gary Taylor and a prosecutor and a private investigator, we flew to Atlanta, Georgia, in 2017 and filmed a TV show called Your Worst Nightmare, the Black Widow episode. It comes on every once in a while, but yeah, that was kind of fun. And then Gary Tate, I still stay in touch with Gary, and Gary found out about this stir that she was causing in this neighborhood with the senior citizens. And so that's the last chapter. We wrote about stuff that's going on right now today. And so her criminal case is still pending. And then there's a civil case. She filed a lawsuit against the elderly man, and he was financing the house for her. And then she forged some documents and lied about it. So there's a civil suit, and I heard the other day that the case got reset on that too. So that's kind of a case that's still going on with her.
So,
and
how did she do, like, kind of, how did she do her thing? She would meet people and then kill them for money.
No. She would get mad. Well, I'll tell you what. She was an intern, a law school intern, working in the grand jury when she was going to law school, and she got in a fight with him. And she took his all his law books and his notes that he'd taken and put them in a trash can in the garage apartment and set them on fire, and then stole his car, and it damaged the garage apartment. Of course, she got fired. And then when we investigated her, we found out that her first husband was in the United States Navy over in the Philippines, and he re-enlisted to stay away from him because she apparently had shot at him with a pistol. And before that she shot Gary Taylor, she had a boyfriend that was with the Houston Police Department, and he taught her how to shoot a gun. And what she would do, she married this doctor, Dr. George Tedesco, and he I don't know, he wasn't married to her too long, but he filed for divorce, and he never showed up in court, and police went to his house, and they found him beat to death with a leg of a table leg.
She sounds like
and yeah, we think that what she would do is she had a guy, Tommy Bell was his name, and she had represented him, and he didn't have money, so in exchange of she would get him to do favors to beat somebody up or kill somebody. And she she was. We got involved when Dr. Tedesco got killed, and then when we warned Taylor about it, and then she ended up going to Dallas, and she had a paralegal, and she was cheating people out of money, and she was fixing to turn her in, this paralegal. So her and her husband went to their house during Christmas, and they killed her husband and shot the paralegal's arm off. And he pled guilty. He was a constable at the time, and he's still in prison, and he won't give her up. And the woman who's lost her arm said they were wearing masks, and she said that she recognized her voice, but they said that I guess the Dallas DA's office didn't think that was enough. So then she went to north of Dallas to it's where North Texas State is. I can't think of the name of the town. Anyway. She scared a polygraph. She was dating a polygraph operator, a guy that used to be a policeman, and he was so afraid of her, he filed a protective order against her, and then she eventually got arrested in Dallas a few times. But the thing is, she's never been to prison, and my editor and I were trying to, and Gary Taylor, we were trying to add up how many people she's responsible. And we were thinking about 8 people that she's responsible for their death.
Wow.
We can't prove any of it, but,
And she's never been in jail, really.
Yeah, she'll get bonded out. She's never spent over probably a night or two in jail.
Does she know where you live?
Probably. Oh, she loves it. She loves the publicity, though. That doesn't bother her. She loves my book. I'm telling you. I'm more worried about other people knowing where I live that are in this book. like the king of harassment.
So who's that? Who's more your most feared person?
Well, this guy won't do anything to your face. I'm not scared of any of them. I mean,
yeah.
But he's a guy that sneaks around in the dark of the night. He harassed women so bad, 3 of them tried to commit suicide. Dangerous guy.
Well, how would you harass someone so bad that they'd want to kill themselves?
Oh, well, you have to read the chapter. Like throwing bricks through your windows, super glue in your door locks, water in your gas tank, coming in your house, stealing your keys, sending you gifts, stealing your mail, stealing your checks out of the mail, writing checks to your the main girl. How I got involved. He was dating this beautiful little flight attendant, and he would get her mail, and he called the bank and ordered new checks, and then she owed the phone company like $25. Well, he'd write a check for $300, and she ended up bouncing a bunch of checks and got credit cards in her name, and oh my God, and her friends, and you can look. I don't know how women could even date him. And you look at him in the face, he's got this scary look. And the stuff he would do to people, Hey, one woman tried to kill herself, and she ended up moving back in with him.
Oh,
tell me how that happens.
Well, what was it? Well, first, what was it about him that he could try? Have someone try to kill themselves and then move back in with you, and what was it? What was the point of him doing what he was doing to these people? Like, what was he?
He would terrorize them. he used this little girl, Dora Santa Maria, to the point where what happened was that we did a handwriting exemplar from her, and we could prove that she had signed some of the change of addresses with the post office. So we finally told he was in our office. Yeah, he was supposed to do an exemplar, but he showed up with a cast on his writing hand, said that his house had been burglarized that night, which was a lie. Yeah, and so we just told him to leave. And finally, when he left, she broke down and told us that if she didn't cooperate with him and talk to us, that he was going to hurt her family. So we got enough information from her to get a search warrant, and she had stolen this flight attendant's all of her uniforms, and we followed him to his house when he left our office, and we got a search warrant, and then we caught him at a one of these places where you donate clothes, Goodwill box. And so we arrested him before he could dump her uniforms, and we got a search warrant, got the uniforms, and went to his house, and he said his Rolex was stolen. All the Rolex that were allegedly stolen were all in his safe. The guy's and you got to realize his mother was very wealthy, and she was married to a gentleman who was an attorney, which was his stepdad, and he was a former U.S. attorney and a pretty well-known attorney in Houston. So he didn't. His so-called job was he was a private investigator, and he'd hang out at the courthouse and take pictures of all the women attorneys. The guy's got a screw loose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say. It's just strange. Did he just pick people at random, or was there a particular reason he picked someone?
No, he was usually. Well, I tell you what, he was. So when I searched his safe, he had a picture of one of our female assistant DAs, and so I went to her and I said, "Hey, what's the deal with this picture?" And she said, "I've gone out with him." I said, "Are you crazy? Why would you go out with this guy? Insane, man. Are you kidding me?" I put her name in the book, and I feel sorry for her, but at the same time, how would you date some nutcase like this?
That's what I asked.
You know, I don't know, but most of it was because they were so terrified of him, and in fact, one of his former girlfriends, I met with her. I met with a lot of his former girlfriends after we charged him, and she brought me this book that he had, and it was called Techniques of Harassment. And dude, he followed it to the T. He followed it to the T, and he was I don't know. He's one of the best. That's why I call it the king of harassment.
Wow. And
yeah.
So he was just harassing for the fact of harassing. Like he just wanted to do it.
Well, what would happen is they would go out on maybe one date or two dates, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's a weirdo." And so when they would break up with him, he'd start harassing them.
Wow.
So,
wow.
You know.
And so is he in jail now, or is he out?
Oh, he got 10 years probation.
Oh. What?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's funny? This is what's odd about it. He when I arrested him, he was carrying a badge as a reserve deputy for the constable's office. I called the constable. I said, "I'm fixing to arrest your deputy here." Because back in those days, they just give you a badge, you know, and he was apparently an instructor at this constable's office for judo and self-defense and stuff. But, I tell you what, the prosecutor this is going to sound funny. So the prosecutor, the first trial ended in a mistrial because the jury convinced them that the complaining witness was my girlfriend, which was not even close to being true. And in the second case, they found him guilty, and he got 10 years probation. And the guy that prosecuted the case ended up hiring him as his investigator when he went into private practice. I called him. I said, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "Are you crazy?" And what's funny is he'd been arrested for DWI in a bunch of cases, but all of his mugshots are gone. There's no pictures of him. I didn't have his mugshot, so I did an open records request, and there's no pictures of him. I was like, what? What's this guy? Well, he was friends with the city attorney. And they tried class 3 misdemeanors, class C, traffic tickets and stuff. And yeah, he went on a skiing trip with this city attorney, and while he in Vail, Colorado, and there was a truck where they stayed, and he stole the license plate. And so when I went through the search warrant in his safe, there was this Louisiana license plate. So I called the guy that the truck was registered to in Louisiana, and he said, "Oh my God, that's on my truck in Vail." And I said, "Well, it was." He said, "Well, where's my truck?" And I said, "Your truck is probably still there, but I got the license plate." So he was with the city attorney and stole the license plate while he was in Colorado. Yeah, that's an interesting chapter. That could be a very good. That could be a movie about this guy. I mean, he harassed a lot of women, man.
Wow. Crazy. Wow. So now you talk about some moments with gun misfires and something a little bit more fun or hilarious. Give us a few samples of what you mean by that.
Okay. Let me see. What was well, it wasn't really. Well, what happened was we went out to. It's kind of a funny story, but it's serious. On a lot of Fridays, the burglary and theft division of Houston Police Department, a lot of guys take off. So this guy came over from Conn's. I don't know if you have Conn's appliances where you live, but I'd met the Houston guy, Conn's security rep, and I recovered a stove for him on a Friday. So apparently he and about 8 other vendors that rent furniture and rent different things had got nailed by these 2 guys that had stolen. This is before you heard of identity theft. These guys were janitors for some cleaning service, and they cleaned. It was called Gulf Oil back then. They cleaned Gulf Oil's offices, and they got a bunch of different copies of applications of their employees. And these 2 guys went and rented 2 houses and furniture and all kind of stuff in the same neighborhood. So one Friday they show up, all these vendors show up, and I grab a couple of investigators, I guess 3 other investigators, and so we go out to the house, and I didn't want to kick the door in because he didn't own the house, and I didn't want to do any damage. So we walked around the house, and there was a chair underneath a window that was a little higher than a normal window. So I got in the chair, and I raised the window, and I said, "Police, I'm coming in." And I stuck my leg in, and when I did, man, a shotgun missed my head by inches, and it blew me out of the window, broke my glasses, and So we of course we knew he was in there. So it took us a while to get him out, but so we got him out, and then his partner. I waited till Monday, and I took a buddy of mine, and this guy was supposed to have a gun. So I said, screw this, I'm kicking the door in. So I kicked the door, and I bounced off, and when I did, I came flying back, ripped the crotch out of my pants. And so anyway, we finally got in, and my partner was with me. I told him to search the bedrooms, and I was gonna check the hall closet. So the second door I opened, I saw 4 eyes, and man, it scared the you know what out of me, man. I was sweating like a pig, and it turns out it was his granddaughter and his daughter.
Oh man!
And so I asked her where her dad was, and she pointed to the attic. And so I pulled the stairs down, and I went up, and I said, "Hey, you need to come out with your hands up," and he didn't come out. And so I went out to my car, and I had a law enforcement shotgun, and I walked up the stairs, and I jacked one in the chamber, and I said, "Okay, man, I'm going downstairs, and I'm gonna start blowing holes in the ceiling." He came jumping up with his hands up. He was in his underwear, and he was covered with that insulation, and he itched all the way to jail. But anyway, and then we had another serious. Well, this was it's called Gunsmoke, another Friday Gunsmoke, and that was in a shootout, and one of our investigators got shot in the foot, and that was pretty. In fact, that's the cover. That cover on the cover of the book is where the money. We had $50,000 in cash. These guys had kidnapped one of these guys because they didn't pay him for some marijuana. So we were doing an exchange, and when we went to arrest the guys, they started shooting at us, and so we shot back. And one of their guys got killed, and one of our investigators got wounded. And that was it. But yeah. You're probably talking about when we were at the Steak and Ale, and we used to have hump night. There's a chapter called Hump Night, and it's one night a lot of courthouse deputies, investigators, and assistant DAs and judges would hang out on Wednesday nights there. So there was a deputy selling a gun. So the guy said, "Well, I'm going to test fire it." Well, there's a dumpster out back. Well, unbeknownst to us, there was the guy that washes dishes was smoking a cigarette. So whoever was trying out the gun started shooting into the dumpster, and all we saw was a guy in all white jump over a fence, and he never showed up ever again back at the restaurant. Scared him so bad. But yeah, it's got a lot of funny stuff in it, and it's got a lot of serious stuff, but
a little bit of everything for everyone. What
an extra job! What a great extra job was. I had a friend of mine that I went to school with, and he worked in the sheriff's office for a while, and then he went to work for one of the kings of Saudi Arabia's sister, and he worked for several sisters. And he called me. He said, "Hey, you want to work? You become the wife for 2 weeks, get paid $150 a day." That was in like 1980. I said, "Heck yeah, dude!" So they fly me out there, and I'm working for this 16-year-old Prince Abdullah, and that was an experience. And a couple of days before I left, the kid used to come in my room every night, and he'd take I had a Smith & Wesson pocket knife, and he would whittle on this big bottle of cologne, had a wooden knob on it. He whittled that wooden knob, and so I looked at the blade, and it was ruined. And so I folded it up, and I stuck it in his pocket. He says, Tom, you'll give it to me? I said, yeah, man, you screwed it up, keep it, sure. So he takes off his Rolex watch and gives it to me. And so I called my buddy I said, hey, Prince Abdullah just gave me his Rolex. He says, well, you got to keep it because you can't give a gift back because it hurts their feelings. So I started looking for something else to give him. So I had a state of Texas belt buckle, so I gave him my belt buckle, and then he gave me his boom box. And so I said, I get back off the plane in Houston, man, I got a Rolex on and a boom box to my head. And that's a funny chapter too, because man, that was, I hope they don't send a hit team after it, but I think that side of the family has switched sides. The last king is from another branch of the family.
Wow.
But my friend did that for probably 10 to 15 years. It's the most nerve-wracking job I've ever had, because it might be midnight and she'll want to move to another hotel. So you got to pack up these they have they call companions, and they bring about 200. There's about 200 of them. So when you move, you got to get all the security. All the kids have a bodyguard, and then you have all these. They're called companions, and so you got to move 200 people, and then you got to leave all your stuff there, and then they hire somebody to pack up your stuff and move it to another. And you never know what they're going to do. I don't care what time of day or night it is. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah, it's a good chapter, actually. It's really good. It's interesting to tell. Their lifestyle was like unbelievable. Money was then was like throw it around like you and I would a nickel or a dime. Like the first day I got there, they wanted to go play soccer, so that we stopped. We take the bus and we stop at this sporting goods store, and they bought out the poor guy almost, and they played soccer for a couple hours, and they took all the soccer balls and all the uniforms and all the shoes and just put them in the trash can.
Wow.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Brand new stuff. Yeah.
So so can I say, why did you write the book? Like, what was the whole point? At the end of the day, when someone reads your book and that, what is it you want to convey to them? What do you hope they take away from your book?
Well, actually, I didn't write it I wrote it for I've got 6 grandkids. And none of my grandkids know what I did as a young man. So I actually, my purpose, I put it on the first page of my book. I said, this book is I wrote this book so my grandkids will know what their papa did for a living when he was a young man. But the stories, the Special Crimes Bureau is currently, they have in Harris County still, is not the same. This was a it's something that it tells stories that no one will ever heard about before and never again. I didn't write it I wrote it for the people that I work with, because we all had the same feeling to play. I mean, honestly, you're going to think I'm joking, but I'm dead serious. When I went to work in the morning, I was ready to go. They didn't even have to pay me. I loved that job. That was my life, and I sacrificed a lot of my children's time and my wife, now ex-wife's time, and it was the people that work there, they felt the same way. It was just a way of life, and it's hard to explain. But when you read the book, I think you'll see that if that's what the kind of cases we worked on, that was some fun stuff. I mean, I talked to in fact one of the prosecutors in the book, Ted Wilson. He's one of the smartest assistant DAs. He still travels around the United States giving speeches on writing a search warrant. The guy was an expert at search warrant. And my boss, who later became the district attorney, Johnny Holmes, you'll never find anybody smarter than him. Don Strickland. There's so many I can name, and so many people I worked with, and I would work an average from, I never worked less than 40 hours a week unless my vacation, but I'd normally work anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week sometimes. I mean, we work weekends sometimes. For some reason, a lot of our big cases always happened on a Friday, and my partner, Bobby Blaylock, who became chief before I did, every Friday morning we used to share an office together, and I said, well, it's Friday. I wonder what's going to happen today. And it's either going to be a shootout or a search warrant or an all-nighter or something. It was always on Friday. I almost named the book Always on Friday, but that wasn't too sexy, so to speak. So, in fact, I originally named the book Texas and Caroline because that's where our office was. We weren't in the courthouse with a regular DA's office. We were in a secluded office building, and we were on the top floor, and you had to be buzzed in, and yeah, it was the best job I ever had. So I guess I wrote it for several purposes, but it was mostly I wanted, like I said, I'd be talking to friends and I'd tell them these stories. They said, "No, that didn't happen." I said, "Yeah, it did." Man, if that's true, you need to write a book. And so I did, and it didn't take me any time at all to write it, and I probably have enough for another book. And I don't think it'd be as good as this one, but I think this one is kind of hard to beat. There's a few that are pretty interesting, but most of the real very interesting ones I've written about. But anyway,
well,
I didn't mean to keep rambling.
No. Do you have a website that people can come find you at for the book or yourself?
Yeah, I do. It's in fact, I need to pay the lady that wrote it. I owe her some money. I've known her a long time. She does my she did my PI account years ago, and in fact, she's an attorney and a very good lady. But it's www.specialcrimesbook.com.
Fantastic. So,
specialcrimesbook.com.
So we'll put that on the website as long as you're with your book too and everything, so people can get one click and get it. And wow, it's been very interesting hearing the stories.
Oh, thank you. One of the most another interesting one, if you just got a second, I won't. It's the last. It's the next last chapters 25, 26, 27, 28. It's about a Supreme Court justice, Texas Supreme Court justice, and he went to prison, and then while he was in prison, he plotted to kill me and my boss and Tom Kennedy, the editor, and so we put an undercover hitman when he got out of prison, and then he decided that, well, if he killed us right now, they would know who did it. So he said he could embezzle some money, or knew how he could launder some money. So I got on a DEA IRS task force, and he was our first case, and I got to arrest him for money laundering. And this time he went to federal prison. And he's since died in Florida. Been dead a few years. But his name was Donald B. Yarbrough. It was a pretty big deal, and it was a pretty big deal in Houston and Texas at the time. That was probably one of my biggest cases as well. So yeah, it's really interesting.
quite a life being in law enforcement, and all the things you see and do and go through. It's wow, I'll tell you, nothing like it.
Oh, and I still get listen to this. I was going to my Amazon yesterday to look at my book stats, and I log in, and it said I'm locked out because of suspicious activity. So I call this number. It tells me to call, and the guy explains to me, what you need to do is you need to go to a store and buy a Google Play card for $100. And I said, you think I'm stupid? I'm a ex-police officer. I just wrote a book in Amazon, and you're telling me that you're the Amazon police? I said, go fight it, dude. I'm not stupid. You had to scam me. I'm the king of scammers. You're not. I catch scammers. Anyway, I thought that was funny.
Just send your money to me in Nigeria. He gave me a Washington D.C. number, and so I got on to. You can't call anybody at Amazon, and so I sent him a chat message, and I said, hey, I just you got somebody out there that's posing as being Amazon. It's this phone number. You need to investigate it. And you get an automatic chat reply, and I said, screw it, man. You know, I guess they don't care. I don't know. Yeah, all sorts of stuff going on, I'll tell you.
Yeah, you know, I got the old Social Security phone call this morning. This is Social Security. And there's some suspicious activity. I'm like, hung up, man. Yeah, but you know, people, older people sometimes answer those and they give them money.
Yeah,
they pay money. I know, it's sad.
Yeah, it really is. Actually, it's just terrible. But well, I'll tell you, it's been great. I'm glad you could make it on, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Our guest today has been the one and only Kenny Rodgers, not the singer, and his book is Special Crimes, Memoirs of a DA Investigator. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Kenny.
Yeah, sure.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Yeah. Good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.